My brother didn't die, he was given away. I grew up thinking I had an older brother who died at birth. My parents kept one photo of him, a blurry black and white ultrasound in a tiny silver frame. They said his name was Adam. Every year on his birthday, my mom lit a candle. Sometimes she cried, sometimes she said nothing. I grew up grieving someone I never met. When I was 21, I came home early from work and overheard my parents arguing. My dad said, "You lied to him for 20 years. What are you gonna do when he finds out?" I stood frozen in the hallway. Later that night, I asked my mom directly. She didn't deny it. She said, "He wasn't stillborn. He was different." Adam was born with Down syndrome. They were young, scared, and convinced they couldn't handle it, so they gave him up, quietly. Told everyone he died. I found him 2 years later. He was living in a care home just a few towns away. His favorite color is blue. He loves puzzles. He smiled the first time he saw me, like he knew. I visit him every week now. I still haven't told our parents. Why are there no baby photos of me? Growing up, I always wondered why we didn't have baby pictures. My parents had albums filled with vacations, birthdays, holidays, but nothing of me as a baby. No hospital photo, no first bath, no first steps. When I asked, my mom would always sigh and say, "There was a fire. We lost everything." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? But something about it always felt off. The house didn't look like it had ever burned, and no one ever mentioned it again. Years later, I got a letter, handwritten, no return address. Inside was a photo of a newborn and a note that said, "You don't know me, but I'm your mother. I've been looking for you for 20 years. I froze, my vision blurred. I stared at the baby in the photo, my nose, my eyes. That was me. I confronted my parents. My dad went red. My mom just sat there, hands folded, face blank. She finally said, "We didn't steal you." "Not really, we adopted you, unofficially." Turns out they knew someone who worked in the hospital, a woman who helped them take in a newborn that was unwanted. I wasn't abandoned, I was taken. They never filed paperwork, never told the truth. And now I don't know who I am, who I belong to, who raised me, or who lost me. My sister is actually my mother. My family is tight. At least we seem that way. I grew up with my grandparents, my aunt, my uncle, and my older sister, Sarah. She was 15 years older than me, but we were always close. She helped me with homework, took me to soccer. I used to call her the fun version of mom. My grandparents were more like my parents anyway. When I turned 22, I needed a genetic screening for a medical issue, a routine thing. I wasn't worried, but the results were strange. It said I wasn't biologically related to the woman listed as my mother. I thought it was a mistake. I reran the test. Same result. I asked my aunt. She stared at me for a long time, then said, "You should sit down." She told me the truth. Sarah got pregnant at 15. My grandparents were furious. To protect the family's image and Sarah's future, they raised me as their own and told everyone I was their son, not hers. Sarah, my big sister, is actually my mom. I went cold. Everything I thought I knew about my life was built on a lie. The worst part? Sarah never told me. Even after I found out, she never called, never explained. I still don't know if she's ashamed or just afraid. The woman who raised me wasn't my mother. Growing up, I always felt off. My mom wasn't cruel, not really, but she was cold, distant. I remember watching other kids hug their moms at school pickup and wondering why mine never touched me. She did everything right. Packed my lunch, paid for school trips, never missed a parent-teacher meeting. But love, real warmth, it just wasn't there. I turned 18 and had to update my ID. Simple government errand, boring paperwork. I handed the clerk my documents. She typed for a moment, then smiled and said, "You're lucky. Not everyone gets adopted into such a good family." I blinked. Adopted? She looked confused. "Oh, I thought you knew." I left the building shaking. That night I confronted my parents. My mom sat silent. My dad kept glancing at her, like asking permission. Finally he said, "We were going to tell you. Someday," but then someday became next year, and then college, and then never. I wasn't angry. I was hollow, like someone had removed the floor beneath my memories. I still don't know who my birth mother is, and I don't know what hurts more, that I was adopted, or that no one ever looked me in the eyes and told me the truth. My dad wasn't who I thought he was. I grew up thinking my dad was a hero. He worked as a firefighter, saved people, and always seemed calm in the face of danger. He had this quiet strength about him, the kind you look up to without question. He wasn't very emotional, but he was always solid, dependable. I never imagined there was anything he could be hiding. One weekend, I was helping my mom clean out their bedroom closet. She asked me to move a few boxes from under the bed. You know, the kind of dusty stuff nobody touches for years. That's when I found it. A small wooden box, locked with a broken latch. It was light, almost too light, but something about it felt heavy. I opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all handwritten. The first one started with, "I miss you so much. I hate that we have to keep this a secret." My heart dropped. Every letter was signed by someone named Lana, and they weren't just from a few months ago. Some were over 10 years old. She wrote about their time together, about the little boy she wished he would visit. And in one, she begged him to finally leave his other family, us. I stared at the words, numb. My hands started shaking. My throat tightened. I couldn't breathe. I walked into the living room, letters in hand, and showed them to my mom. She looked down and then up at me. Her face turned ghost white. She didn't say a word, just sat down slowly on the couch. After a long silence, she finally whispered, "I knew. I've known for a long time, but I stayed for you." That was the day I realized my entire childhood had a crack running through it. The man I thought was perfect had a second life, a second family, and somewhere out there, I had a brother I never knew existed. My dad still hasn't spoken to me about it. I see him at holidays. We pretend everything's fine, but every time I look at him, all I see is the lie. My uncle was secretly my real dad. My Uncle Jack was always cooler than my dad. He took me fishing, taught me how to fix bikes, slipped me candy behind Mom's back. I felt like I could talk to him about anything. My dad was distant, stern, like he was always disappointed in me, even when I tried. At 26, I got sick. I needed a kidney transplant. My parents got tested. No match. Uncle Jack, perfect match. I didn't think much of it at first. Just lucky, I thought. But during recovery, my mom broke down. She sat by my bed and said, "You deserve the truth." When she was young, she had a one-night stand with her husband's brother. She got pregnant. They agreed to raise the baby, me, as her husband's son. Uncle Jack never told anyone. He just stayed in the background. I looked at him differently after that, not just as the fun uncle, but the quiet man who loved me from a distance, who saved my life twice. The woman I call Grandma wasn't related to me at all. My grandma was my favorite person in the world. She baked cookies every Sunday. let me watch cartoons way past bedtime. She made the world feel safe. When I was a kid, I thought she was just like any other grandma. Warm, funny, always smelling like cinnamon and lavender. At my cousin's wedding, I saw a giant family tree hanging on the wall. Everyone's name was there. Aunts, uncles, cousins. But mine was missing. I thought it was a mistake, until I looked closer. No one in my branch of the family was on there. I asked my dad. He avoided the question. My aunt pulled me aside and said, "You deserve to know." Turns out my biological parents were addicted to drugs when I was born. They couldn't take care of me. The woman I called Grandma, she was our neighbor, not related by blood, not even a foster parent, just someone who couldn't stand to see a baby left behind. She raised me without papers, without permission, just love. She's gone now, but every time I smell cinnamon, I think of her, and I know who my real family is, even if the blood says otherwise. I was dating my half-sister and had no idea. Her name was Jamie. We met in college. Same philosophy class, same awful professor. She laughed at my jokes. I loved how she scrunched her nose when she was thinking. We dated for almost a year. It wasn't just casual. It felt right, like fate, almost. I took her home for Christmas to meet my family. My mom loved her, but my dad went quiet, like frozen. After dinner, he asked to talk. He took me out to the garage and said, "Jamie's mother, what's her name?" I said it and watched him turn white. He sat down slowly and said, I knew her. A long time ago, we dated. We had a thing. I didn't know she had a child. My heart dropped. "What are you saying?" He looked at me, dead serious. "There's a chance. Jamie is your half-sister." I felt like I couldn't breathe. We got a DNA test the next week. It was true. We ended things. We had to. But it haunts me that I love someone who turned out to be my blood. Think you know your family? These people thought the same, until one moment changed everything. Here are 7 real stories where the truth turned out to be darker than fiction. Story number 4 will change the way you see family forever. My dad wasn't who I thought he was. I always looked up to my dad, a firefighter, a hero. One day I was cleaning out some old stuff and found a box under his bed, full of letters. They were from someone named Lana. She wrote about how much she missed him and that he promised to leave his other family. I showed them to my mom. She went pale. Turns out he had a second family. I have a half-brother I've never met, and my hero was living a double life. The woman who raised me wasn't my mother. My mom was always distant, cold, like she didn't quite know how to love me. On my 18th birthday, I went to get my documents updated. The woman at the office looked at my file and casually said, "You're lucky you got adopted into such a good family." My whole world stopped. I confronted my parents. Silent stares. Then my dad just nodded and said, "We were going to tell you someday." I still don't know who my real mother is. Grandpa wasn't a war hero. He was a fugitive. In the basement, I found an old newspaper with my grandpa's photo on the front page. The headline, "Wanted, armed bank robber still at large." My mom admitted it. He changed his identity and hid for over 40 years. And I thought those military medals were real. My sister is actually my mother. I took a genetic test for a health screening. Results came back weird. Said my mom wasn't biologically related to me. I asked my aunt. She burst into tears. My older sister got pregnant at 15. My grandparents decided to raise me as their own, to avoid the shame. So yeah, my sister is actually my mom, and I've been lied to my whole life. Why are there no baby photos of me? Growing up, I always wondered why there were no pictures of me before age 6. My mom said there was a fire. Everything was lost. But one day I got a letter from a woman claiming to be my biological mother. She said I was kidnapped from a hospital, raised under a new name. I'm still trying to process it. My brother didn't die, he was given away. I was told my brother died at birth, but I overheard my parents arguing late at night. Something about, he's still alive, and it was the only way. Turns out he was born with Down syndrome, and instead of raising him, they gave him up, without telling anyone. He's 24 now, lives in a care facility. I met him once. He smiled at me like he'd known me forever. Every family has secrets. Some are small, others you can change lives. What would you do if you found out something like this about your past? Share your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories you won't believe.